गुड आफ्टरनून। आई एम पायल गोयल। पायल गोयल पढ़ाती भी है, सीखती भी है। एक्चुअली आई एम टीचिंग सिंस 20 ईयर्स टू द स्टूडेंट्स, बट इन माई 20 ईयर्स मुझसे ज़्यादा बच्चों ने मुझे सिखाया है। बच्चे मुझे बताते हैं किस तरीके से पढ़ाया जाए कि उनको मैक्सिमम मार्क्स मिल सके। The way they should be taught, the way they should learn how to come to their level, that is what I am learning till date. But I am proud to say I have been able to provide the students with such guidance that they could score 100 on 100 in their board exams as well. And these are the students who make me always proud. From very average student to the student keeping them up to a level where they can get 100 marks, the confidence which is required, वो confidence हम as a teacher कम लेकिन एज अ लर्नर ज़्यादा अच्छे से प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं। आज इंटरेस्ट ऑन कैपिटल टॉपिक आई एम गोइंग टू टेक अप फ्रॉम क्लास 12th। नाउ यू वुड be surprised why interest on capital. Interest on capital is a simple topic, but yet it carries a lot of weight. It actually simplifies the concepts to be attached to various other concepts. So first, before I start with the interest on capital, a simple question that comes to our mind is capital, which we have already studied since class 11th so many times. But still, I would like to tell you in a brief introduction what is capital. कैपिटल क्या है? जो मनी जो एक बिजनेसमैन कमाने के लिए, एक्स्ट्रा पैसा कमाने के लिए इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है बिजनेस में, जिससे वो अपना बिजनेस शुरू कर रहा है, वो अमाउंट कैपिटल है। कैपिटल सिर्फ और सिर्फ कैश नहीं हो सकती। कैपिटल कैन नॉट बी इन द बैंक बैलेंस। कैपिटल मे बी इन कैश, मे बी इन बैंक, और मे बी इन सर्टेन अदर एसेट्स that can be brought in and with which the business can be started, right? So capital is the initial investment of money or goods or assets which a businessman starts his business with. This is what is exactly the capital. कैपिटल का अमाउंट वो अमाउंट है जो बिजनेसमैन ने लगाया। अब अगर मैं बात करूँ सोल प्रोप्राइटरशिप की, सोल प्रोप्राइटरशिप में द कैपिटल इज द अमाउंट इन्वेस्टेड जस्ट लाइक इन पार्टनरशिप, बट in case of interest on capital, the businessman himself is the sole recipient of all the profits, all the bearer of all the risk, so it doesn't matter. But in case of partnership firms, interest on capital is an important aspect. Interest on capital. Now when we talk about interest on capital, it is from business point of view, it is an expense. So when I say it is an expense, means it is the nature of interest on capital is the expense, right? Now the next question is why do we treat it as an expense? It is an expense for the business because it is paid to the partners. It is paid to the partners, right? So this is why interest on capital is an expense. Now the question arises, there are partners and partners are the owners of the business, so why do they need to get the interest on their own investments, right? To answer this question, the first of all, interest on capital is paid for two reasons, right? So reasons for providing interest on capital, right? There can be basically two reasons. The basic reasons are two reasons due to which we provide the interest on capital, right? The first reason can be when the partners invest different amounts of capital but the profit sharing ratio amongst them is equal, which means maybe two partners are there, A and B. A might have invested rupees 3 lakhs and B might have invested rupees 2 lakh. There is a difference between the amount of capitals, but the profit sharing ratio is 1:1. In order to compensate the partner who has invested more money into the business, the interest can be paid. So whosoever is investing more money will get more interest. The person who is investing less money will get less interest, right? So one of the reasons is this only. The second reason for this can be when the amount of capital contributed by each partner is equal, but the profit sharing ratio is different. Now if I talk about this case, the example can be A and B are two partners who have invested the same amount, that is 2 lakhs each into the business, right? But their profit sharing ratio is 1:2. So in order to compensate the partner who is getting less amount of profit share, he will be compensated from the interest on capital, right? So this is the reason of interest on capital. Now we have studied about what is interest on capital, we have studied about the nature of interest on capital, and we have also studied about the reasons for providing interest on capital, right? Now when we study about interest on capital, there are various treatments for interest on capital, but before that I would like you to remember certain points to remember. So first of all, certain points to remember are there which you must keep in mind before starting with the interest, right? So one of the reasons for interest on capital one of the reasons or the points which you have to remember is interest on capital is always provided on the opening balance of capital, right? Now what is opening balance of capital, that I don't need to tell you, because if you are studying interest on capital, that means you are well versed with the topic of the opening capital, right? But still, the capital which is, to make it more clear, the capital which is on the first day of the current year, the capital which is on the first day of the current year is called the opening capital, on which the interest is provided, right? The second thing that you have to remember for this interest is interest on capital can be a charge against profit or an appropriation of profit. Now when I talk about charge against profit and appropriation of profit, I consider that you are well versed with the concept of charge against profit and appropriation of profit. Still, to be more clear, charge against profits, these are mandatory expenses, right? Mandatory expenses, which implies they have to be paid irrespective of profits or losses to the firm, which means they need to be paid at all costs, right? Whereas appropriation of profits means when the expenses are incurred only in case of profits. Only in case of profits means if there are profits they will be paid, if there is no profit they will not be paid, right? And these concepts play a very important role in the treatment of interest on capital. I always stress children, instead of cramming up the things, if you are able to understand the concept, अगर आप कॉन्सेप्ट के डेप्थ से नॉलेज लोगे तो आपको कभी भी कोई भी क्वेश्चन सॉल्व करने में प्रॉब्लम नहीं आएगी, बिकॉज कॉन्सेप्ट इज व्हाट मेक्स योर, जिसको हम कहते हैं ना नींव सिर्फ और सिर्फ ये कॉन्सेप्ट ही रख सकता है, बिल्डिंग अपने आप बनती चली जाती है ना। तो इसके लिए हमें बहुत ज़रूरी है कि वी नीड टू हैव द कॉन्सेप्ट्स वेरी क्लियर व्हेन वी आर डीलिंग विद सम एनी ऑफ द कॉन्सेप्ट्स इन अकाउंटेंसी, right? So this is the concept which we are going to apply for the interest on capital. Now when I talk about interest on capital, there are various cases in which we can deal with interest on capital, specifically with relation to partnership, right? So I'm going to discuss about the various cases of interest on capital in case of partnership firms. Cases of interest on capital. By now you all are aware that partnership is the outcome of an agreement, right? So whatever is agreed upon in the partnership deed is the base for all the procedures to be followed while recording the transactions in the partnership firms, right? So in case of interest on capital also the same thing applies. Now we have three cases to deal with. We have the three cases under the broad category in which we are dividing them. The first such case is when the partnership deed is silent as to interest on capital, right? The second is when the partnership deed provides for interest on capital. Now instead of dealing with the three cases, I'll segregate them itself into three parts. When the partnership deed is silent as to interest on capital is a separate case, but when the partnership deed provides for interest on capital, in this case it can be further subdivided into two parts. That is, if the interest on capital is to be treated as a charge or it is to be treated as an appropriation, right? It is to be treated as an appropriation. If the interest on capital is to be treated, if the partnership deed is silent as to interest on capital, right? And we all are aware that if the any amount or anything which is not given in the partnership deed, that will not be provided to the partners. So in this case, if the partnership deed is not clear, it does not tell you whether the interest is to be allowed or not. In this case, no interest is allowed. No interest is allowed. Fine. But when the partnership deed provides for interest on capital, in that case you have to check whether it is a charge against a profit or an appropriation. If it is a charge against profit, let's say if it is a charge against profit, it is a mandatory expense, as I have just told you, right? So charge against profit means it is a mandatory expense, right? Which means it has to be paid. Paid means must be paid irrespective of profit or loss, right? So if it is a charge against profit, the total interest needs to be paid. Needs to be paid irrespective of the fact whether you have the profits or the firm is incurring the losses, right? But when the interest on capital is an appropriation, then again there are various cases. If I talk about the cases where the interest is to be treated as appropriation, the first case comes into my mind is whether the firm has profits or losses. First I'll check if the firm is incurring profits or incurring losses in case of appropriation, right? Because it is the case of appropriation only where the firm can decide itself whether the interest has to be given or not, because in case of charge against profit it needs to be paid irrespective of profit or loss. So when it is the firm has to check whether profits or losses, and it comes to know there are losses, in such a case no interest is payable, as it is an appropriation and can be paid out of profits only, but there are losses, so no interest is applicable at all, right? Now second case comes is when there are profits, right? If I have profits, then I can certainly give the interest on capital, right? But again, if the profits are sufficient or less or more, right? There are again the cases when profits are more than interest on capital, right? One case can be this: profits are equal to interest on capital, profits are less than interest on capital, right? Now in these different cases, when the profit is greater than IOC, interest on capital, right? If you have more profits, certainly you can give the full amount of interest can be given, right? And balance profits will be shared by partners in their profit sharing ratio, right? If the profits are just equal to IOC, that means the profits are just sufficient to pay off the interest. In this case, total interest is paid, even if nothing is left to be given to the partners as a part of profit, right? The major concern comes when the profits are less and the interest is more. Now in this case, as the interest is more, which also implies that your appropriation is more and the profits are less, in this case I cannot pay the total amount profit. This case is called the profits are insufficient. Profits are insufficient to pay the interest, right? In such a case, the use of appropriation ratio comes into existence. इस केस में हम appropriation ratio calculate करेंगे, right? Now what is the meaning of appropriation ratio? Appropriation ratio का क्या मतलब होता है बच्चों? Appropriation ratio means ratio which is calculated based on the amount payable as interest to partners, right? For example, let's say A and B are two partners contributing capital rupees 5 lakh and rupees 7 lakh, right? Partnership deed provides for interest on capital at the rate of 10% per annum, right? profit sharing ratio amongst partners is rupees 1 lakh. Fine. The profit sharing ratio amongst the partners is maybe 5:7, right? Profits of the firm before appropriations are rupees 1,20,000, right? So this is the hypothetical example which will help you to understand what is appropriation ratio, right? Now if I see at this question, first of all I'll calculate the interest on capital. Interest on A's capital, how will I calculate? Amount of capital, which is 5 lakhs, right, into rate, is it? So that comes to 50,000. Interest on B's capital would be 7 lakhs into 10 by 100, that comes to 70,000, right? Is it? Now the total amount payable to both the partners comes to 1,20,000 and the profits are also 120. That means I can give the complete amount as the interest and there is nothing left for the partners out of profit जो कि हम उनको उनकी प्रॉफिट शेयरिंग रेशो में दे सके. सो डज नॉट मैटर, विल गिव द टोटल इंटरेस्ट, राइट? नाउ if I make a little change in this question and the profits before appropriation are, let's say, 1 lakh, right? Now I take the profits as 1 lakh, fine. If I take the profits as 1 lakh, that means I do not have the profits sufficient to pay off my interest because the total interest comes to 1,20,000 and my profit is rupees 1 lakh, correct? Right? Interest is this much and profits are this much only, right? इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? Profits are less than the interest, right? अब इंटरेस्ट ज़्यादा है, प्रॉफिट्स कम है, मेरे पास क्या ऑप्शन है? या तो मैं प्रॉफिट शेयरिंग रेशो में दूंगी तो मेरे दोनों पार्टनर्स नाराज हो जाएंगे, राइट? सो व्हाट अदर ऑप्शन इज दैट जो पार्टनर का अमाउंट बन रहा है मतलब ए का अमाउंट है 50,000 इंटरेस्ट का, राइट? और बी का अमाउंट है 70,000, ठीक है? तो किसी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट से बचने के लिए व्हाट आई विल डू इज आई विल गिव देम द अवेलेबल प्रॉफिट्स इन द रेशो 5:7, 5:7, which is the rate of interest in which I have to pay the interest. Am I clear? This is the ratio in which I was required to give them the interest. So in the ratio of interest I will pay them the profits. And how will I pay the profits in this case? Now what will I do? I will prepare the, in which account am I going to pay the interest? That is, because it is an appropriation, so I will prepare the profit and loss appropriation account for the year ended, right? And the proper amounts, right? So whenever I am preparing the profit and loss appropriation account, as you all are aware, it always starts with the profit which is after all the mandatory expenses, all the charge against profits, right? So the profit for me available is rupees 1 lakh, right? Fine. Now as my profit is less and the interest is more, what am I going to do? I'm going to distribute this 1 lakh profit amongst the partners in the ratio of 5:7, right? So to interest on capital to A, B, right? Simply write A or B, or write A's capital, B's capital in case the capitals are fluctuating. Otherwise it must be A's current account and B's current account. Yes, we have already studied this concept. capitals are fixed and capitals are fluctuating, right? So A is current account, or B is current account, or the capital account, whatever the case may be, right? So this 1 lakh I'll share in 5:7, that is 1 lakh divided by 12, right? So it comes to it will come in somewhere in the decimal points, right? So we can calculate it up to 2 decimal points, and that decimal point will be, for example, 6 8s are 48, right? 6 3s are 6 3s are and 6 3s are, right? So what will be the A's share? 833.3 into 5, 833.3 into 7. This is how I'm going to distribute this 1 lakh, right? And my question will be solved. Fine. I hope this concept is clear to everyone, and related to this concept I'll be sharing the question where there are various cases and you can apply these concepts to solve the question. Is this clear? I hope you will understand the concept better and will be able to solve the questions in a more appropriate manner. Thank you so much.